Hello, sorry to be late.
Hey, welcome.
Thank you. We might be a very small group this evening. I got a couple of emails from folks who were asking to make sure that it would get recorded. So I'm presuming that there are some people who are interested, but we're not going to be able to attend.
We got the recording in progress, so we're good to go.
Great. So hello, Gavyn. Sorry, I'm just managing to connect here, and I do appreciate you taking the time to talk with us. My name's Andrea Boykowicz. I am the Assistant Director at Oakland Planning and Development Corporation, and this is our monthly conversation, Let's Talk. Every month we invite the community to participate in conversations, a variety of topics that suggest themselves based on what it is that we're hearing from the neighborhood. And we've had a lot of folks reaching out to us lately who are curious to know how to manage trash that isn't trash, things that they can't actually throw away, and things that require some extra care when it comes to recycling. And so I'm very pleased. Thank you so much. I'm so glad that you can join us here. Pennsylvania Resources Council is in the house. And Gavyn, if it's okay, I'm going to allow you to introduce yourself and Emily. Oh, Anna. Sorry, I believe you. I thought you were going to bring Emily. I apologize. Nice to see you. So without further ado, want to remind everybody that this is an open conversation. If you have questions at any time, please feel free to raise your hand or just unmute yourself and ask a question. It's very informal. Gavyn, you had a presentation that you emailed to us, but I believe that we can give you the power to share your own screen if you'd like to present that. At any time, if anybody needs to, raise your hand, let us know if we have to repeat something or if we need to go back and take it away. So, Gavyn.
Yeah, so would you like me to start off just giving a little intro about my role and a little bit about PRC, or would you like me to then talk a little bit more about the programs that are pertinent, or would you like me to just wait and see what questions come?
Yes,
okay, yeah, I'll just start going. Then feel free to interrupt me at any time, anybody. And yeah, I can see I can share my screen. But first, my name is Gavyn Marincheck. I'm the Recycling Operations Coordinator at the nonprofit Pennsylvania Resources Council. The primary goal of Pennsylvania Resources Council, I won't go through the written mission statement and everything, but the best way to describe it, I think, is we mainly work with all forms of waste diversion. Waste diversion is pretty much our main goal, and it's what most of our on-the-field practices evolve around. We do three main categories of waste diversion. There's the hard to recycle, which is electronics, tires. Sometimes we do glass there, we do appliances. And then there's the household hazardous waste, or the household chemical, which is things like paint, fuels, gasoline, and all types of real scary, gnarly stuff where the bottles just have X's and skulls and crossbones and we don't know what they are. And also we do zero waste events, which evolve around doing recycling and composting at large scale events, whether they're hosted by businesses, cities, concerts, all types of things. We do our own composting and recycling services on the field for those things as well. So as far as different hard to recycle and disposal things, that's the bulk of what we do. What I think would probably be most pertinent to this conversation is to talk about my specific role at PRC, because the city of Pittsburgh contracted us to bring back electronic waste recycling and household chemical recycling for city residents. So as far as services that the people in this call would probably be looking to use, my role is actually probably the one that makes most sense for me to talk about to start. So let me bring up that flyer. Would you be able to give me screen sharing when I'm clicking screen share?
Yeah, let me push a button and let me see. All right. Does that now? Can you do
I
it?
think that works. Yep. Cool. All right. So is everyone seeing what looks like a big flyer? Great.
Yes, indeed.
So this is our most updated flyer. And on there, you can see that e-waste recycling is listed as being weekly. So we purposely don't put the location and the times on the flyer because a lot of illegal dumping happens if we tell them the location. People won't listen to the times necessarily. So in order to keep that at a minimum, we I'll give you, it's in the strip district. That's the only clue I'm going to give verbally. You'd have to actually go through the link of registering before you get the exact address, because illegal dumping has at different times become a large problem.
I'm sorry. So Gavin, when you say that illegal dumping is a problem with down at the location that's in the strip, you're saying that people will show up and then just leave stuff before and after hours that you would then need to clean up later? Is that how that works, or is it that they don't take it to the right place, or what is it when you mean that?
So the reason why we don't put this exact address on is because during the hours that we're not collecting, people will come, what I assume in the under the protection of night, real sneakily drop off a television outside the door. There's typically a little treat every week of something being left out there. So we try to, in order to minimize that as much as possible, we keep it under wraps until we know that the people actually want to come to the collection. And another thing, illegal dumping, if you want me to speak a little bit on that real quick to show why we need this program even. So at the city's 5th division, the city has different divisions for recycling centers where the material goes to. And over the last few years, through a whole lot of miscommunication and weird, all kinds of obscure posts online, it became common knowledge that people should take their electronics to the city's 5th division, which is not true. It's not a place you can take your electronics. And there's just hundreds of TVs dumped there. So we've been trying to clean that up. But we also kind of see that as a function of, if this service isn't available, then people get desperate and just put it wherever they feel they can get rid of it. So,
there's some folks on the call, Gavin, that have might have trouble reading this flyer. So the operative reason I would imagine that there is illegal dumping, why it's a problem, is because people are charged 35 cents a pound, right, to recycle these hard to recycle items. That's in small print across the flyer, but that's a very key point, right?
Oh yeah. So in order to cover, yeah, no, absolutely. That's another reason why it's dumped, for sure. We've had people, so I also do the labor during the collection, and we'll have people come after I weigh it. I always communicate to them before anything, this is 35 cents per pound, but people still, of course, and I understand why. I hear, wow, this is so cheap, this is great. Then on the total opposite end of the spectrum, we have people like threatening violence. And so the 35 cents per pound currently we're in a unique position as a nonprofit to where we can charge the public exactly what we're being charged to have the e-waste recycled, which is where we want to be. But ideally, it could be subsidized in a way that could remove that 35 cent per pound barrier. We have experimented that with the past, and I'm assuming that going forward, we would like to do this. But as far as the official contract with the city has us contracted to charge 35 cents per pound for this. So that's kind of where the price comes from, is that like all labor is funded through this contract, like my salary or whoever's working on the project salaries through the contract. But the actual disposal of the material, that's the direct charge to us. We're charged 35 cents, we charge 35 cents. Oh, I think someone raised their hand.
Hello,
Hey,
Gavin.
Ron. Yay.
Hello.
Okay, I was just wondering if you guys could hear me. I know under the previous contract the city had for hard to recycle materials, there was some kind of a voucher program for people that, still didn't have enough money to pay for what the regular pricing was. That's still the case.
That is not currently a program that the city is sponsoring. A voucher program would be awesome. Hopefully, my personal goal is after the existence of the program for about a year, because it only started in May, so we're only about 6 or 7 months into the program. Within hopefully the coming months, after we demonstrate enough need for the program, maybe to the city, we can start about investigating ways to have more funding for people who truly can't afford to be there. And related to that, the city will also sponsor up to 5 neighborhood collections throughout the year. So we go to different districts throughout Pittsburgh. We've done District 2 and District 7 so far. So right now we can help meet people at the areas that they need it, but there currently isn't a way for us to help meet everybody at the price point. Bob, I see you raise your hand.
Yeah, sorry, I'm trying to drive here as well as talking, but I'm Bob Charlin from Pittsburgh City Council, and I know that in the past we have sponsored some of the vouchers through our office. That has been something we've been able to do successfully. The one issue that we've had is that because of the limits around where you can do these events, when they've been in our district, unfortunately, we've been really limited. We can't put them where we think the vouchers would probably be most helpful. So unfortunately, when we've done vouchers, we've run into a problem where the people that don't need them are the people that are going after the vouchers to go into this program. So, I know that there's state regulations around where you can and cannot do this, but I just want to let you know we have a willingness to do some of these vouchers that way, if we can have a partnership there.
No, well, thank you for communicating that. That's awesome news. I'll communicate that. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to clarify, OPDC has worked with the District 3 office on being able to co-sponsor those events with PRC in the past in Oakland, where we get a pretty hefty response. But again, I thanks very much, Bob, for that perspective, because that's really helpful to know, right? If there's some way for us to be able to very quickly identify folks on site, who would be eligible for those kinds of voucher subsidy for this program, that would be amazing, because we do know that it's true that the response rate in Oakland is more folks who don't need it than folks who do. So
yeah,
I just wanted to plus one what Bob said.
Yeah, and I think these events are great, and look, anyone who's talked to me for 2 minutes knows about how serious I am about getting trash, off the streets, and, how important this is to us. So we want to, however we can make these hard to recycle events more easy for people to use, so they're not throwing TVs on the side of the sidewalks. We'd love to figure out a way to make this work. So just whatever perspective we can have there, however we can try to work together. In Oakland, in the Hilltop, those are really big areas where there's a lot of needs to have these events be successful.
No, that's absolutely great to hear, because so while I have these specific pricing date constraints and frequency constraints for this specific contract with the city, that's not true for everything else we do. So I can very easily, with my boss, arrange as many collection dates as we can secure subsidies and funding for and planning for, because we'll come as much as we can make it happen. We're willing to come. So we're absolutely willing to work with you guys on establishing dates and seeing how we can secure funding in order to make these as easy as possible for people. Because these constraints aren't like this, like the 35 cents per pound, that's only because the way this contract that was worked out needs to be done. That's not how we have to do every collection by any means. So we would absolutely be happy to work with that. Would you, Barb, are you cool if we contact, like my boss and I contact you guys about this in the near future?
Of course, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I can't put my email in the chat while I'm driving. But
I'll put your
Oh, yeah.
info in the chat, Bob. I got you.
yeah, everyone else here has it. Somebody can do it. Thank you.
We have a question from the chat if you'd like to answer that at this time.
Yeah, of course.
It's I think from Liz Gray. What happened to the Covered Device Recycling Act that requires manufacturers to provide recycling programs for desktop computers, laptops, monitors, peripherals, and televisions sold to consumers in Pennsylvania?
What a fantastic question. And the answer is nothing happened to it. It passed. It's still technically a legal responsibility of manufacturers in Pennsylvania to provide these services. But my oh my, are there ways around it? There's, well, my personal opinion, there's so many, since I've been working there the past 6 or 7 months, there appears to be so many ways around the manufacturers being held responsible for the Covered Device Recycling Act. That all the burden is shifting to the consumers, because at least in the Pittsburgh area, we're pretty much, in our area, we're the primary option for disposing of electronics. And our company eLoop, who actually processes it, is closer to export, and they're pretty much the only one in that area. And that's all revolving around consumers themselves bringing in the material. So one common way around it is if they collect older televisions, they can meet the weight requirement of how much they need to collect very fast, but actually are taking in very small quantities of material from a very small number of people. Because they don't have to, the way it's set up, they don't have to recycle everything that they're putting out. They just have to meet certain requirements. And the ways of meeting those requirements are unfortunately can be accomplished by doing bare minimum to meet these numbers. Because the law does state that they have to do it, but when it comes down to it, it's another thing where the manufacturer isn't necessarily held accountable for doing so, and the burden is then placed on the consumer because they are having to themselves, and because the law will impact the consumer. It impacts both, but only one actually bears the negative brunt of it.
So Gavin, do manufacturers then have events like this where they're pulling things back, or are they working with collectors like you to process those kinds of returns, if you will?
So we have no contact with any form of manufacturer. I can speak for us, and I don't know of any other people that collect that do so. My assumption is that they probably partner with one or two particular businesses, and they probably have very specific roles of, we can collect this much and meet these numbers, then we can kind of wash our hands of the thing. Or they may do their own, like, hey, Sony or whoever, we're doing this collection, bring your things, meet the numbers. Because I know we have, like, none of the weight that we're collecting is being communicated to these manufacturers. So I don't think we're contributing to these metrics at all that they have to meet.
If anyone else has any questions about the electronics recycling that PRC and the city have partnered with to offer weekly. Otherwise, I know Liz has a question in the chat right now about mattresses, and I wanted to ask about tires. So I was just wondering if if we've covered electronics, if we could move on to other topics like that.
Sure. I'm willing to start talking about some others. Yeah, any hard to recycle stuff, feel free to ask. I will have some form of answer, even though I know the most about electronics and household hazardous waste. But
Can I ask you one more question about the
yeah,
electronics?
absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
So I'm a little curious about like what happens if people, there's some things that, what happens is if this stuff does wind up in the trash, like, is it bad ecologically speaking, for this stuff to get mixed in with the rest of the trash? Like what sort of happens if that's the case?
Yeah, so the way I look at it, you're missing out on the good of recycling valuable metals and materials that are in electronics. So you're missing out on the positive recycling end of the spectrum. But on the other hand, and what's probably more significant is the seeping of the chemicals and metals into groundwater. If these things make it to a landfill, there's a lot of gnarly stuff and batteries, computers, televisions, and the main concern with those things is then the different components of these materials having seepage into waterways, and that's the primary concern of not having them properly disposed of. All right.
So we're lining up a series of things for you to talk about that are not electronics. Sorry, Gavin, but we have questions in the chat that are about mattresses and garden hoses and small metal sharp items. And then I wanted to throw in, what do we do about tires?
All right, lots of fun stuff. Lots of fun. Okay. So the first one is about mattresses. So typically mattresses will be, that's something that Michael Brothers, we typically refer people to Michael Brothers Hauling and Recycling. They'll dispose of mattresses. And so that's the first one I'll put out there is what to do with mattresses. That's I would typically refer people to Michael Brothers. But if they're in good condition, we do every year we do something called Reuse Fest, which is a massive reuse drive where people can bring all types of things that are still in reasonably good condition to be donated to Habitat for Humanity and various other services. And that'll probably come up again based on other things that people are asking how to get rid of. Small items, a garden hose. So a garden hose, let's see, my initial thoughts are possibly construction junction. They are the most creative when it comes to finding a use for how to dispose of something that may have another life. Or unfortunately, a garden hose, if it's busted up, I would recommend that this is probably going to have to be trash. There isn't as many recycling opportunities for a garden hose. Sharps, good question. I just had dealt with this a couple days ago, but those were regarding medical sharps. So let me talk about medical sharps real quick. Medical sharps, those can often, you can refer people to whoever your doctor is. Your local doctor's office will often accept medical sharps. There's lots of hospitals in Pittsburgh, and they will sometimes accept medical sharps, as well as police stations. But for other sharp things, and even medical sharps in some cases, depending on whatever the law is at the time, if you put it inside of like a laundry detergent container and then put that container in a bag, so you're kind of having two layers of defense against the sharps breaking through and being dangerous, then those can be disposed of in your normal trash. So again, it's inside a container like laundry or something of similar hard plastic nature, and then you put that inside another bag, and then you're good legally, at least, to dispose of them in your normal trash. Tires, correct? Okay, so tires, during our hard to recycle events, which we do throughout various counties, and I believe we do maybe 3 in Allegheny County. So tires, we partner with Liberty Tires, and they are on site to dispose of tires. So that's the most frequent and common one that we utilize. And then this is something that I need to reconfirm with the city, but on the city's website, there's, as some of you may know, there are various recycling drop-off locations throughout the city where you can bring glass or cardboard and paper. And at some of these sites, it's advertised that tires can be disposed of there at charge, but I've never actually confirmed of which of these recycling sites that will take those, which is strange and leads me to believe that that's an older program that they may not have either updated or maintaining. So thank you for bringing that up, because I have to check with the city about if city residents still have that as an option. But the most consistent thing I would recommend is that when we do hard to recycle events, or even if somebody else is doing a hard to recycle event of that nature, that's the most consistent way to dispose of a tire. All right, any other fun things people are curious about reusing or recycling?
So what kinds of options are available to, community groups, local organizations that see tires, electronics, other kinds of, no-nos set out on the curb in the neighborhood? So it isn't precisely illegal dumpling. Number 2.
It's easy.
I'm not thinking about dumplings. It isn't precisely illegal dumping because it is intended to be placed out with the trash, but it's often hard to manage when it's set out and then waiting there to be collected for some time. And it's clear that there's a misunderstanding about what it's possible to set out or what it's legal to set out. And so I'm just kind of curious, what is it that neighbors should do when they notice non-trashable trash set out on the stoop?
Yeah, I would recommend 2 things. The easiest and what I would recommend first, contact 311, because all matters of city programs and city services, whatnot, will be filed through 311. That's the easiest thing I can recommend, because if it's regarding electronics, they funnel that to me. So it does get to me if it's regarding electronics. So the very first thing I would recommend for just a concerned citizen would be to contact the city, because I know at some points the city will, when they have the capacity, it seems, will bring down a load of electronics that they have just accumulated on their various journeys, whether they picked up accidentally or something was particularly badly littered to where it was a problem. So I would definitely alert the city about that, because sometimes littered electronics are brought down to us on behalf of the city, and the city will take care of it. Also, but for I would recommend for a community group is if they're noticing either tires or electronics or some no-nos, so we can as far as curbside disposal, to contact us, because we can help coordinate. Maybe we have really good relationships with our vendors, so if a community group is able to amass a quantity of things, that we can connect them with these vendors to have them come or set up some form of a way to get these items disposed of. Because the process of, I communicate mostly with eLoop, the electronics vendor. They're very flexible and can pull, they'll just show up with a truck, pick up everything and leave. Like nobody has to grab anything. The only issue would just then be what we were talking about earlier, the funding of processing those materials. So there are options for community groups, absolutely. Get in contact directly with these big vendors like Liberty Tire or eLoop to get special pickups organized. And we're absolutely happy to help that organization process at PRC.
Great, thank you. We, just for everybody's information on the call, I mean, we reached out to DPW, but we didn't give them quite enough time to clear their schedules. So Chris Mitchell and Omoye from DPW were both really sorry they weren't able to make this. But if there are questions that people have or any of these issues that would be better addressed by them, we're happy to collect their input. And we will post that together with the video and your questions from this evening on our website. Is there anybody else who has a question or an observation or how to get involved? I know there's a couple of students on this call, which is awesome. And oh, here's Liz asking about
Toaster oven, that can come to the electronic waste collection.
So what is an electronic? Like, what, by that definition, is that just like anything that you plug into the wall?
Yep. Our general rule of thumb is if it has a battery or a cord, it's good to come to the electronic waste collection. With exceptions, like full-size refrigerators, or if someone were to have like a washer, dryer, an oven, things that are more large-scale appliances, that is for Appliance Warehouse down the south side. And that, I know they just updated their website and whatnot. But those things, I think they're taking even more things like now, like lawnmowers and other various types of equipment and household appliances. And that's free. Like they'll just take your things. So even if people call me and they're like, oh, I have a mini fridge, I'm like, we will take it, but you might want to check into Appliance Warehouse because there's no charge, which I don't know if I should do because I'm driving people away from the program. But, and yes, they also take styrofoam. That's another great hard to we also do styrofoam at the hard to recycle collections, but for people that are actually in the city of Pittsburgh, Appliance Warehouse is a great resource for styrofoam.
What becomes of like, what does eLoop do with a lot of those materials?
So they are, I believe, the only eSteward certified recycler of electronics in Pennsylvania, which means that they kind of have the highest credibility as far as responsibly disposing of things. And it kind of depends very much product specific. So for computers example, like computer towers, laptops, they try to, it's really interesting because if they don't refurbish them, they totally rebuild them from scratch. They're like certified by Dell to take the parts from all the computers that they receive and rebuild them into new computers. So as far as computers are concerned, they're mostly rebuilt into new products, and then they resell them for, like I know all of our laptops at work right now, they're all purchased through there. I think they're like $100 for a perfectly serviceable, great laptop. So as far as computer projects go, it's mainly about making new products based off these old products, because we accept all computers are accepted for free because they're actually making money off of those, as opposed to having to dispose of hazardous materials. As far as televisions are concerned, those are primarily just broken down. Metals can be recycled, of course, but a lot of that is keeping hazardous materials out of landfill and finding ways to nullify them from being hazardous. The way I understand it is some of the materials like computers and newer, maybe a monitor or even some cords, there's value in a resale and refurbishing market. And then things like old TVs or flushing tubes, burnout bulbs, batteries. That's mainly the breaking them down so that they do not pose a danger to anyone. So it's kind of a twofold thing. You got the recycling aspect where you get, where I mentioned earlier, the good out of the process, where you're getting new things and you're using less raw materials. But then they also deal with the dangerous of breaking apart all these televisions, pulling out all the components, pulling out what's dangerous versus valuable, and sorting through all that.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Yeah. Oh, would everyone like me to talk about household hazardous waste? Because the other portion of the city thing that I kind of do the operational aspect of is household hazardous waste collections. So at the same place in the Strip District, we do they've concluded for 2022, but for 2023 there'll be 5 household hazardous waste collections, which there's a million things that classify as household chemicals, but most popular things like paint, putties and adhesives, all types of fuels, anything that's like flammable and reactive solids, chemistry sets. Sometimes you get a jar of pure mercury, lead, asbestos, propane tanks, fire extinguishers. So anything that appears hazardous that the city does not want you to put in a garbage can, there's a very good chance that it can be brought to a hazardous waste collector. And so as of now, there are 5 scheduled for the calendar year of 2023, and those dates will be made available in early January, and then all that stuff can be brought through our household hazardous waste collections. Fire extinguisher, that's also at a household hazardous waste collection. Great question. And can you get them refilled? No. I don't know. I'm not gonna lie, I do not know, but I do not think. In addition to the city household hazardous waste collections, there's also countywide ones. I think we do 9 of those a year. So every month, sometimes twice a month, there's at least some option to do to dispose of things through a household hazardous waste collection.
The household hazardous waste, are those then those collection events, are those known at the beginning of the year? Do those appear on the city's waste and recycling calendars that they mail to everyone?
I do not know if they put those on there. Unfortunately, I actually don't live in the city. I live in Latrobe, of all places. So I live like an hour away. So some of these, some of the things I don't get to see with what they're sending to residents. But I would imagine, because I know they just told me that they were working on their calendar and they wanted my dates for the collections. So I'm hoping that they're on an official calendar. They are communicated through their website, and then which then links to our website. So there are various channels as far as registering and finding these dates.
We'll be sure to link to those as well. So
yeah, and please, I'll send every relevant link I can think of to OPDZ after this, and any graphics I think are relevant. So, and then that can be disseminated. And I'll also include the contact for the other people I work with, because they're, I mean, I graduated college in May, so I don't have quite the experience of my boss and all the other people that work there. So anything that I may not be able to answer or provide good information with, they're overwhelmingly willing to help, I will say. So I'll include their information as well, because they know how to make things happen and how to find information too.
terrific. Thank you so much, Gavin. Does anybody else have any questions or any stump the chump type questions about how to get rid of X, Y, Z? Hearing or seeing none. Did I get to everybody? Thank you so much again for spending this time with us this evening. We're going to have a slightly shorter meeting than we often do, but that's fine, I'm sure, with all of us heading into the holiday season. Do appreciate your time. We will record, rather this is being recorded. I will make sure that we get the recording posted to our website. Thank you so much, Jared, for driving the bus on this. And we will also post any updates that Gavyn sends our way, as well as any supplemental information that we're able to gather about, maybe we'll make our own dictionary of stuff trash that's not trash that you can't actually just leave out. And I was seeing that there's Katie Fitzpatrick here. We will make sure that SGB gets looped in, Kate, to make sure that you guys can help us disseminate that, especially when it comes to off-campus clutter collection at the end of the year. Make sure that we're not leaving anything on the street. So thanks, everybody. Have a great evening.
Can I say something real quick?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, please.
Oh, no, it's fine. So the my other coworker that was going to come does our composting workshops, because composting is something we also do. So I'll give this for it to be sent out to everybody about when our next composting seminar is, and if people want to learn about individual composting, and then we even provide a barrel. But I believe you don't have to. If you don't want the barrel, you don't have to take it, because you then have to buy the barrel. But I think we're pretty good about giving out the information and trying not to paywall people as much as possible, because you can learn how to compost without getting this specific huge barrel that might not be perfect for people in Oakland to have in their apartment.
Thank you. We appreciate that consideration. Okay, great. Thank you, everybody. Truly. Have a good night.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you
It's
so
great.
much.
I rarely
Gavyn.
ever get to do where I'm trying to